Welcome to the Madison Miller Podcast. Today is Monday, March 16th, 2020. Today I'm going to talk about the latest with the coronavirus and the latest fallouts from the weekend. Then NFL free agency moves that already happened and trades that had happened. Today's a busy day in the NFL. We'll get to all of it. What's to come, NFL edition, and what's to come, podcast edition. So, all right, let's get going. We're going to start with the latest with the coronavirus. Today or last night, it was announced that 8 weeks of proposal of no more than 50 people in a public manner. So that certainly is a big deal. A lot of things get postponed or canceled. Not just in sports, but concerts and weddings and a lot of other functions as well. So you got that, and then it was announced today that New Jersey, New York, and Connecticut in a tri-state thing announced together that all restaurants, bars, movies, gyms, etc. will close at 8 o'clock indefinitely tonight, and they'll be open for, or bars and restaurants will be open for takeout and delivery only. So that is a bit of a big deal, obviously, and it's up to the business to open back up for regular business hours when the business owners feels like it's safe to do so. So that's the latest with the real life stuff with the coronavirus. And then an NBA player, Christian Wood, who's having a career year for the Detroit Pistons, was tested positive for the COVID-19. So obviously Christian Wood was up against Rudy Gobert not that long ago, right before Gobert was diagnosed, maybe like that Monday before. So it's really undetermined whether who got it from who. So that's obviously a connection right there. Another sports person that got tested positive was a minor leaguer from the Yankees system. And the Yankees were obviously working out in Tampa as a major league club, but they obviously had to get sent home because the league came out with some rules and whatnot. So that has a ripple effect potentially with the Yankee player. There could be more Yankee minor leaguers or players that could have played against him in spring training. But what's good for this player is that he felt sick on Friday, so he self-quarantined on Friday, and then it got word out that it was a positive test on Sunday. Donald Trump actually took the test as well, but his came back negative. Word is that Charles Barkley's corona test came back negative. Rita Wilson and Tom Hanks apparently are doing fine, so that's good news. Their son, Chet, sent out a video on Twitter and Instagram addressing the situation and pretty much saying that they're doing fine, but they're going to stay in Australia till it's safe to come back home, which is the right thing to do. And apparently Rudy Gobert's doing a lot better, and he donated money to employees for the Utah Jazz, which was awesome. And he had a nice apology statement over the weekend as well, because he kind of, along with the Hankses, started this ripple effect of everything. But mainly in sports, it was just Gobert. And that's what led the NBA to suspending, and baseball to suspend, and hockey to suspend, and the NCAA tournament to get canceled. And that's just an unfortunate situation. It was just announced that the NFL draft events are going to be canceled. So that is a big deal. They're still going to have the draft, and it's still going to be televised, but like the fan stuff is obviously what's canceled with the draft. Opening day of Major League Baseball may not happen until the middle of May, and that makes sense because that's when that 8-week period is up. So maybe that's when the NBA and the NHL get going as well. So one of the silver linings of the coronavirus is that you're going to have a lot of sports in the summer, and we're not used to that at all. Normally it's the Olympics and it's baseball in the summer. That's every 4 years, but this year would have just been Olympics and baseball. But now we got pretty much everything: hockey, NBA, the WNBA. Obviously, their season's probably gonna get delayed as well, but no word from that league yet. Maybe I'll have Jeff Maglicetti on this week or next week to talk about that and all the other stuff that's going on in sports. And obviously the coronavirus, or not the coronavirus, but the non-coronavirus stuff, like the NFL free agency as well. So got to get Jeff on to talk a little NBA and whatnot. But yeah, the NFL draft close to the public. There's no word on whether Major League Baseball is going to cancel their draft and All-Star Weekend or move it. So that's something to keep an eye out. But yeah, opening day to at least mid-May. So that is it for the coronavirus latest. And now I want to talk about what's gone on in the NFL. Today's been an absolute crazy day in the NFL. A lot of trades, a lot of free agent signings reported, and a lot of stuff from the weekend that happened as well. So the biggest one that happened today, obviously, the Houston Texans trading away star wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins and the 4th-round pick to the Arizona Cardinals for David Johnson, a 2020 second-round pick and a 2021 5th-round pick. I don't remember who got the 5th and who got the 4th, but I think Houston got the 5th and Arizona got the 4th. The bottom line is the Arizona Cardinals absolutely stole DeAndre Hopkins from the Houston Texans. That is an absolute steal of a trade. Now they're going to be a cheek pick to make the playoffs in the NFC, and Kyler Murray is going to be everybody's darling pick to be the 2020 Lamar Jackson breakout star quarterback. And if that's the case, then this trade certainly helps the case for Kyler. An absolute home run deal for Steve Keim. A trade that can save his job. So that is an awesome deal. They are ready to win now. They have their future, and they're now at quarterback and Kyler Murray. But they still got work to do. They have an offensive line to fix. Maybe they give Kenyon Drake a little bit of a long-term deal. They have holes to fill on defense, but they're not a playoff team yet. But they really took a big step in that direction today with the trading for DeAndre Hopkins. And what it means for Houston, horrible. Absolutely horrible. This is a worse return than what the Giants got for Odell Beckham Jr. And I can't believe I'm saying that because Hopkins is better than Odell. Much better. Hopkins is the best receiver in the league. Unbelievable. And Bill O'Brien is just inept as a general manager. I mean, he can win games in the NFL as a coach, but he's just a poor talent evaluator and trades away good players and gets mediocre back for them. And this is intense in case trash. Especially if David Johnson does not return to the player he once was under Bruce Arians, which I don't think he is. He's, I think, one of the most overrated players in the NFL. Like, he's done absolutely nothing other than that one breakout season. So that is a terrible deal for the Houston Texans. And I think that barring some other major moves and whatnot, I think there's a chance the Texans finish under 500 because DeAndre Hopkins is arguably their best player, if not their second or third best player, depending on how you feel about Deshaun Watson and J.J. Watt. I personally would have him as their second best player behind Watson because I just think that Watson's an incredible quarterback. But this is a step back for Watson. What does this mean for him? Will Fuller has not proven that he can stay healthy on a football field. So that is a terrible trade by the Houston Texans. Another trade that just broke is that the Indianapolis Colts acquired DeForest Buckner from the San Francisco 49ers for the number 13 overall pick. I think that is a good deal for both sides, especially Indy. I felt that Indy needed a pass rusher, and they got one here with Buckner. I thought one of their biggest weaknesses last year was getting to the quarterback, and they certainly helped themselves here by getting for Buckner. So they get them big man in the middle, replacing Justin Houston there in Indy. Houston's pretty much washed up. So they get somebody that's coming off a career year, and I do think that it will work for them. And meanwhile, San Francisco doesn't have a lot of draft capital because they traded a lot away to help build this team, such as acquiring Emmanuel Sanders and etc. But they get the number 13 overall pick, and now there's a lot of speculation is that they want to trade down and gain more assets, which is, I think, the right thing to do. I still think they're a good team. They're still a contender. Jimmy G's a solid quarterback. Yeah, he collapsed in the Super Bowl last year, but I still consider him a good quarterback and a quarterback that can potentially win you a Super Bowl. Because, let's face it, they were up double digits in the second half of the Super Bowl last year and could have won if a couple of things went their way. That's how I look at it. And kudos on the Niners for maybe potentially getting more assets down the road if they decide to trade down in the draft. And then the other big news that the 49ers made today is that they re-signed Arik Armstead to a 5-year deal. He also had a career year last year on defense. They decided to bring him back and then trade away Buckner. And Armstead is somebody that really did not pan out at first and then had a great year last year and turned it into this big-time free agent. Or not really free agent contract, but an extension, I guess, because he was technically a free agent. And now his team brought him back. So I think the 49ers had a good day as well. Another trade that happened today was the Baltimore Ravens trading away Hayden Hurst to the Atlanta Falcons for a second-round pick and a fifth-round pick, and the fourth-round pick goes to Baltimore. Maybe it was the fourth that went to Houston and the fifth that went to Arizona in that deal. Because I know Baltimore got a second and the fifth for Hunter. For Hunter. So I think that it's a high upside play for the Falcons for the tight end. Hayden Hurst. I don't know why I had the name Hunter stuck in my head. And he replaces Austin Hooper, who signs a 4-year, $44 million contract with the Cleveland Browns. Bad signing. I think that's an overpay. Austin Hooper's a nice player, but he's overpaid. And the Browns already have that tight end in Njoku. And now what's next for him? Is he on the trade block? So I think that was a typical Browns signing right there. And that makes their roster better. We'll get to more on the Browns for a second. But that's a nice trade for Atlanta. And then Baltimore gets assets back for a tight end that they liked, but wasn't getting playing time because of the two they already have, Nick Boyle and Mark Andrews, and both those guys had nice seasons this past year, so somebody had to go. So I understand that trade. And now there's another rumor out there that there's another big NFL trade involving a wide receiver, and of course everybody says Odell Beckham Jr. because his name was in trade rumors yet again a couple months ago when the season ended and he seemed unhappy in Cleveland, but it may not be Odell Beckham Jr. Some people saying it might be Stephon Diggs. I personally think it's Odell. I predicted an Odell trade on my first podcast of this calendar year when I did my 2020 sports predictions. I had Derek Felix on about a month ago, and I told him that I thought that the Browns were going to deal Odell. So I'm sticking to my guns, and I think Odell's traded. Stephon Diggs remains a Minnesota Viking, especially after the fact that they got rid of Linval Joseph and Xavier Rhodes, two now free agents on the market. I'm interested to see where they go. I think that those two players can help new teams, and I think Minnesota's now in play for some of these big-name free agents like Byron Jones and people like that, Dante Fowler. So watch out for Minnesota. And another guy that I think's on the trade block, he got franchise tagged today by the Chiefs, and that's Chris Jones. And he's on the trade block because the Chiefs need all the money they can have to pay the best player in the NFL, Patrick Mahomes. So Chris Jones could be out there. Players that were franchise tagged, obviously Chris Jones, Leonard Williams of the Giants, Brandon Scherff of the Redskins, Derrick Henry of the Titans, Dak Prescott of the Cowboys. A bunch of other guys were franchise tagged. There was another big one too. Oh, Shaq Barrett of the Bucks, which obviously that means Jameis Winston becomes a free agent. So that's pretty big news right there with him on the market. And other trade or franchise tags include Cincinnati's A.J. Green, Jacksonville's Yannick Ngakoue, Chargers' Hunter Henry, I talked about that one already, Baltimore's Matt Judon, Pittsburgh's Bud Dupree, and Denver's Justin Simmons, who I discussed on Friday's show. All right, now I'm going to talk about what's next in terms of the NFL. More free agents and whatnot. Obviously, the biggest fish in the pond is Tom Brady. The Bucs rumors are starting to heat up. There's always that rumor out there, when there's smoke, there's fire. This could be it. But I still think that the Chargers make the most sense for Brady. They made a lot of win-now type of moves, like trading for Trey Turner. The franchise tagging of Hunter Henry makes sense. They re-signed Austin Eckler. I think Melvin Gordon's going to go. So, my first big prediction, I'm just going to get to my predictions right now, I guess. The list that I made. Tom Brady to the Los Angeles Chargers. I don't feel great about it because of the Tampa rumors coming out. But I'm going to roll with it. And it's going to be so interesting because this should be the biggest story in the world right now, but it's not because of the coronavirus. And even the coronavirus is the biggest story in sports. It should be this. It should be the future of the greatest quarterback of all time in Tom Brady and the fact that he might leave the New England Patriots. It sounds stunning, but now I don't think it will be stunning whatsoever just because of the readings of the tea leaves. Drew Brees, I think, returns to the New Orleans Saints. No doubt about it. I think that's the lock of the offseason. Talked about Chris Jones. I think he gets traded. You'll see where in a second. Jadeveon Clowney, I had him going to the Indianapolis Colts, but I have to change my pick for that now. I'm going to say that he signs with the Miami Dolphins. Anthony Harris, I had him to the Dolphins, but he got franchise tagged today by the Vikings. And by the way, the Minnesota Vikings extended Kirk Cousins by 2 years. So his free agent contract would have been up this season in 2020, but he gets a 2-year extension. Do I think it's deserved? Some may say no, some may say yes. I'm going to say yes, only because the Vikings are still a good football team. Even though they got rid of 2 good defensive players, I still think that they want to go out and make some win-now moves. I think that they could trade for somebody to replace Linval Joseph. And I think that they can go out and sign a corner in free agency. They could be the dark horse team for Byron Jones. So don't rule that one out, guys. So Vikings placed the franchise tag on Anthony Harris. Byron Jones, I do not think goes to Minnesota. I think he remains in the NFC East, but goes to the Cowboys' biggest rival in the Philadelphia Eagles. Well, it's their biggest rival right now. This makes too much sense. The Eagles need secondary help. I think they're under a lot of pressure to make good moves this offseason to compete with the Cowboys in that division, even though they won the division last year. But let's face it, they won that division probably because the Cowboys had an inept football coach and were in a bad situation of their own. So because of the Cowboy distractions last year, I thought that the Eagles took advantage of it last year. But I think Dallas right now is better as things stand. But if Dallas loses a couple people and Philly signs Jones and a few other pieces, then Philly could be the favorite in that division. But right now, I'd say it's a coin flip. But right now, I would lean slightly towards the Cowboys in that division. We talked about Barrett and Simmons being franchise tagged. Joe Thuney of the New England Patriots was franchise tagged today. That surprised a lot of people. I think that there's a chance he gets traded, or maybe New England extends him. I think what Tom Brady does depends on this one. So I think Brady leaves, so I think Thuney gets traded. I'm going to say he goes to the New York Giants, and they give up maybe like a second-round pick and a future third or something like that, and they get him pretty cheap. Because the Patriots need some draft picks to kind of rebuild a little bit, even though there's still like that slim chance that Brady returns. DJ Reader is a free agent. He had a good year last year. The Broncos are apparently all in on him. He obviously played for the Houston Texans. That's where I think he ends up. I think he'll end up with Denver. I thought about that earlier on my flight home. Where would Reader end up? I'm going to go with the Broncos. They have some cap space, and they want somebody manning the middle with Von Miller and Bradley Chubb once he comes back. Amari Cooper, I believe, returns to the Dallas Cowboys. They have to have this one, in my opinion, because they gave up a first for him, or else that trade would look like a win for John Gruden. And I think that Jerry Jones is going to do his best to keep Amari Cooper in Dallas. If they keep him, but if they get rid of him and trade for somebody else that's good, and they have that good receiving core with a good number one, whether it's Cooper or not, with Michael Gallup and a competent number 3, they should win that division. And then they locked up Blake Jarwin today, too. So I don't think Jason Witten will be back with the Dallas Cowboys. Derrick Henry, we talked about earlier. Corey Littleton, good linebacker on the market. I think he goes to the Browns. It just feels like a Browns signing waiting to happen. I think they end up losing Joe Sherbert. So I think that they end up signing Corey Littleton. I had Austin Hooper to the Patriots, but he ended up on the Browns. Chris Harris Jr., I think, ends up with the New York Giants. I think they miss out on Byron Jones, so they overpay for an aging guy in Chris Harris, who's still solid, but he's getting up there in age. That just feels like something the Giants would do. Eric Armstead, he just got paid by his old team, the Niners. I had him going to the Jets, so screw that prediction. Joe Schobert, is that a possible Jet? You know what? I'm going to call that one. I'm going to say that Schobert ends up with the New York Jets, because they need like that outside linebacker presence. They could have had Josh Allen in the draft last year, but instead they went with Quentin Williams. Don't forget that, guys. Javon Hargrave, another good player on the market. He is obviously a defensive tackle from the Steelers. A lot of teams should be interested in this player. Maybe the Broncos. I don't see him going there, though, because I have somebody else going there. This is another tough one for me, too. Javon Hargrave. The Redskins have men in the middle. I don't see him landing there. I can see him winding up with the Bears or the Packers. I think the Packers make a lot of sense for him. I think that the Saints make some sense. I think that this is one that's going to surprise a lot of people, Javon Hargrave. Wherever he goes, I think it's going to be a big stutter. Like, whoa, I didn't see that coming. And guess what? I'm going to say that he ends up on the same team as DeAndre Hopkins in the Arizona Cardinals. That's my call. I don't feel strong about it, but they do need some pass rush. Dante Fowler, I'm going to the Las Vegas Raiders. I just think that they need pass rush, especially on the edge there. Bud Dupree, franchise tag by the Steelers. We talked about that. Jack Conklin, I think, goes to the New York Jets. They need line help. Brian Bulaga, I think, goes to the Buffalo Bills. They also need help on the offensive line. Blake Martinez, I believe, has already been signed. He's somebody that had a good year last year. I think that he's somebody that really came into his own. I have no clue where I believe he'll end up. I'm going to go, just because they lost Nick Kwiatkowski today, I'm going to say that he ends up with the Chicago Bears. Jamie Collins is interesting. I'm going to say he returns to New England. I just think that Belichick likes him. So I'm going to say he goes back there. James Bradbury, the defensive back, I think ends up with the Minnesota Vikings and replaces Xavier Rhodes there. Connor McGovern's a good one. Good offensive lineman. The Vikings could use him. Another team that could be in play would be the Giants or the Jets if they miss out. They're two guys I think that they could end up getting. Buffalo would be a good fit, obviously. They need O-line. I'm going to say that McGovern, with some cap space clear-ups, I'm going to say he ends up on Houston. Do I feel good about it? No. Clinton Dix will sign with the Dallas Cowboys. That's my prediction. I think their biggest need is a safety. Clinton Dix, as far as I'm concerned, is a good safety. Had a good year with the Bears last year. So I believe he'll land a multi-year deal with the Dallas Cowboys. Phillip Rivers. Everyone and their brother seems to think he's going to Indianapolis. I don't. And I was just listening to Adam Schefter and Chris Mortensen on Adam Schefter's podcast today. Mortensen doesn't seem to think that Rivers Colts is a lock either. And that makes me feel even better about this prediction. And Adam Schefter seemed to agree with him, even though that the Colts really want to sign Rivers. But I think he goes to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And that's where, obviously, all the Brady hype is right now. But I think Rivers in Tampa would be pretty good. I think that having two outstanding wideouts in Mike Evans and Chris Godwin will help him. A couple good tight ends there. A nice offensive line. A lot of young players. A good coach in Bruce Arians. Obviously, Arians and Rivers, I believe, have crossed paths before. So I think that would be a really nice fit for Phillip Rivers. And I hope I'm right on that one. If I'm right about any of these, I hope it's that one, because every year in every sports free agency, we have the insert name is a lock to go to insert team, and it doesn't happen. We saw it in the NBA last summer. Kevin Durant was once upon a time a lock to sign with the New York Knicks. He went to the Brooklyn Nets, and everybody freaked out. Garrett Cole in the winter, a lot of people thought it was a lock that he was going to sign with the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, and everybody said that Artie Moreno was going to do whatever it takes to sign Garrett Cole. Guess what? He ended up with the New York Yankees. So these things don't always come into fruition in what the media said. The last one that actually did was LeBron, probably with the Lakers. And then Artemi Panarin in hockey, a lot of people thought it was the lock and he was going to sign with the Florida Panthers because his ex-coach Joel Quenneville is there. But no, he ended up on the New York Rangers. So these things happen all the time. I think that Rivers ends up in Tampa, and Jameis Winston, the soon-to-be former Buccaneers quarterback, I think will end up in Indianapolis. I think that Frank Reich, obviously Frank Reich has ties with Rivers. That's why everybody's connecting the dots there. But Winston and Indy would make some sense. Indy has T.Y. Hilton. They have some other good players. Eric Ebron. They have a good running game, a good offensive line. I think being there will really help Jameis a lot, even if it's on a one-year prove-it deal. Emmanuel Sanders, I have going to the Philadelphia Eagles. I think they need another receiver. He'd certainly help them. Melvin Gordon, I think, gets a ridiculous contract from the Miami Dolphins. That just makes too much sense. They have a lot of cap space, and who are they going to throw it on? And I'm going to say they throw it on Melvin Gordon and Jadeveon Clowney because they think they're getting Tua in the draft, or that's their goal in my mind. Maybe they trade up to the 2 spot from Washington just so they could secure the guy that they were dreaming of since last year. So I think that they're going to overpay Gordon and overpay Clowney, and people are going to be picking them as a cheek surprise team in the AFC for next year. So that's that prediction. Couple more. Marcus Mariota, I have going to the Bears. I know the Bears are hot after Teddy Bridgewater right now. I don't know if that will get done, but even if it does, then the Marcus Mariota one will obviously be wrong. Desmond Trufant, I have going to the Pittsburgh Steelers. They need some help in the secondary, especially at the cornerback position. So I'm going to say he ends up there. Linval Joseph's a tough one. I think that the Minnesota Vikings could regret this one down the road. I know that they have the clear cap room to re-sign Kirk Cousins, and they want to do some other things as well. I'm going to say he ends up in Oakland with the Las Vegas with the Raiders. And that one, they just need some pass rush help. I should have picked Clowney to go there. That would have made all the sense in the world. I have him going to the Dolphins. And I have somebody else going to the Raiders that I think would entice their fans. Who do I have penciled in as an Oakland Raider? Oh, Dante Fowler. I think that the Raiders are in play for Clowney, but I think somebody else, the Dolphins, will overpay for Clowney. And then Xavier Rhodes is a good one too. I think he'll end up somewhere that I think he wants to rebuild his value. He'll go on a 1+1 deal like HaHa Clinton Dix did last year, and it worked out. The Giants would have been interesting, but I don't think that a rebuilding team like them would want to go after a guy that just looked bad last year. The Patriots would be interesting for him. I'm going to say he goes to the other New York team. I'm going to say he goes to the New York Jets. They just dumped Tremaine Johnson, who was a free agent flop there. Maybe Rhodes goes there and rebuilds his value with the Jets in New York. So now on to trades. Jacoby Brissett to New England for a 2020 third-round pick. I think that they lose Brady and they reacquire one that they had before in Brissett. Chris Jones to the Minnesota Vikings for a 2020 first-round pick and a 2021 fourth. That would be a great move for the Vikings and for the Chiefs, in my opinion. Gets the Vikings closer in the picture for the NFC Super Bowl, and the Chiefs get another first-round pick that they could potentially do what the Niners did today, really, and acquire that other first-round pick they can potentially trade down and get more assets for. Odell Beckham Jr. to the Buffalo Bills for a 2020 first round pick and a 2021 second. That's a nice deal. I have a feeling that the Pagulas are going to go crazy and notice that their team was close and they see that Tom Brady's going elsewhere. They're going to be like, why not trade for a good receiver that's unhappy? And plus, Josh Allen needs that top weapon, and I think that Odell and Josh Allen could be a good match there in Buffalo. I think the Jaguars attempt to trade Nick Foles but fail to do so because that contract is ridiculous. I'm going to say that Matt Judon is traded to the Seahawks for a 2020 second and a 2021 third. Baltimore franchise tagged Judon today, and there's been trade rumors about him, so I'm going to say that Seattle acquires him to replace Jadeveon Clowney. I'm going to say A.J. Green is traded to the San Francisco 49ers for a 2020 third and a 2021 fourth. I think that would be a good fit for him to replace Emmanuel Sanders, and he's an upgrade over Emmanuel Sanders. And I think that would be a nice fit for Jimmy G in that offense. I had DeAndre Hopkins to Green Bay, but that obviously did not happen. And I'm going to say that Yannick Ngakoue gets dealt to the Los Angeles Rams for a 2020 third and a 2021 fifth as the Jaguars continue their hunt to be the leading candidate for hashtag tank for Trevor, just like the Dolphins were last year for hashtag tank for Tua. One more free agent signing I forgot to mention is that the Miami Dolphins signed Eric Flowers to a 3-year, $30 million deal. I hate that signing, even though Flowers had a good year last year in Washington after they moved him to guard. I think that's fool's gold because the Redskins were a bad team, and they were going up against some weak competition with the Giants and some other teams down the stretch when they started to play a little bit better. But that just feels like one that's bound to flop in my mind. But I could be wrong. Could absolutely be wrong here on that one. So, one last prediction. It's not really NFL related that much, but it's just funny because it involves an ex-NFL player, and that is Rob Gronkowski. I'm going to say that he's the white tiger on The Masked Singer. I've been saying it's on the podcast for a while that I think it's him, so I'm going to throw it in with the NFL offseason / free agency / whatever predictions. And by the way, maybe Stephon Diggs does get traded because he just tweeted it's time for a new beginning. And you would think that that's a head-scratcher, right? So that is obviously remain to be seen. And maybe I will do another podcast tomorrow if more NFL bonanza trades and signings happen. Maybe I will come on tomorrow. If not, we'll definitely do Wednesday. And then we'll do Thursday as a free agency special. And then Friday, we will do a show as well. And before I go, I want to do the What's to Come podcast edition. I just discussed what's coming up next on the podcast. I just said that I may do a special tomorrow on free agency if there are more major moves, like if Odell Beckham gets traded or something wild like that, then maybe I'll come on tomorrow and talk a little bit. Wednesday's show is going to be NFL free agency, coronavirus latest, and I'm going to do my top 10 movies of 2019. Thursday's all NFL free agency. Maybe I'll have a guest on, maybe Derek, maybe Jeff Maglicetti or Jeff Burns, talk NFL free agency. Just have a voice on the podcast just to change it up. And then Friday we'll do another show, the latest on NFL free agency and coronavirus. And then my top 10 songs of 2019. And then next week's, I'm probably just going to do Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, barring anything crazy. And I hope you guys are all staying safe out there. And wash your hands. Keep your hands to yourself for the most part. And hope you guys have a great day, everybody.